Hi, I'm John and I'm a data journalist here at the FT.
And I'm Federica, I'm the FT's statistics journalist. In this series, we're going to look at the numbers behind the news headlines, and we're going to show you how you too can seek the statistical evidence behind any news story.
A couple of months ago, economic historian Rutger Bregman was speaking at Davos, where he raised the issue of philanthropy and whether the biggest corporations in the world and their bosses are being benevolent and generous in the billions that they give, or whether they're actually avoiding contributing to society by not paying their taxes.
So does he have a point? Are philanthropists just really avoiding tax, and if so, how much?
I hear people talk in the language of participation and justice and equality and transparency. But then, almost no one raises the real issue of tax avoidance, right? And of the rich just not paying their fair share. 10 years ago, the World Economic Forum asked the question, what must industry do to prevent a broad social backlash? The answer is very simple. Just stop talking about philanthropy and start talking about taxes. Taxes. We need to.
That was interesting.
It obviously ruffled a lot of feathers. And, it's very much of the zeitgeist. We've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the US talking about big tax rates, Corbyn and Labour talking about the same thing over here. But I guess the thing we were chatting about is what are the numbers like behind this?
And what's the big deal? Tax avoidance is legal, isn't it?
Exactly.
So why are we so worried about it?
Yeah, so technically, tax avoidance is when people use legal methods to, declare income in a certain way. Legal loopholes, some people would say, but the point is it's legal. So
not the same as tax evasion.
Exactly. Tax evasion, of course, very different. This is where people perhaps don't declare income at all. So it's the cash in hand economy, the shadow economy, or at the high end of the spectrum, it's people who are simply not declaring high income, so they escape the system altogether.
So shall we have a look at an example of tax avoidance?
Sure. Where do you suggest we begin?
How about Amazon?
All right, everyone's favourite delivery company.
I'm going to have a look at how much taxes Amazon paid. But first of all, let's have a look at how much money they made, which is what should be taxed. So I'm going to make a chart here. So this is in 2016, and then we'll have a look at 2017, and then 2018 data. Amazon's pre-tax profits. They made £4.5 billion. 2017, they made even more, 5.4. 2018, off the charts, literally. 9, 10, 11.
$11 billion.
It was something like 11.2.
So the US corporate tax rate, the top rate until the Republican tax bill came in late last year, was 35%. So if it was 35% in 2016 and 2017, I guess I'd expect for those years it would be just under 2 billion in the first year and then around 2 billion in the second year.
You are wrong. They paid 45 million in 2016.
45 million, and these are billions.
Yes. So I don't know how to show this. So let's just do a little one here. 2017, they actually got money from the government. So let's add 140.
Pretty low ball. 2018,
In 2018, they got 130. So actually, they got a tax rebate from the government. So they actually got money and did not pay any taxes.
So what you're telling me is Amazon, over that 3-year period alone, made about 20 billion in pre-tax profits. And, they gave away a bit back to Uncle Sam in 2016. But then the following 2 years, they got money back. And so yeah, let's just jot this down. So that's 20 billion over those 3 years.
Give or take.
And in taxes, which I'll put on the right here,
they paid 450 million, and then they got 130 plus 140. That's all right. 270.
So they're about 270 million in taxes paid.
Okay, but Jeff Bezos donated $2 billion in total. So.
Okay, that's nothing to sniff at, but I've been running some numbers myself, self-confessed massive nerd. And so we said 20 billion over those 3 years. If you go right back to 2009, then it's about $27 billion that Amazon have taken in pre-tax profits. Now, over that entire, 10-year period, okay, they've done a bit better than the 270 million in terms of taxes, but it's still 1 billion that they've given to the US government. So we're talking like less than less than 4% of the profits they made there, despite the fact that for most of that period, corporation tax was around 30%. So you're saying, good old Jeff, he's given $2 billion to his foundation. But if Amazon had paid taxes at 35%, which was the top corporate tax rate until the most recent tax cut, 9.5 billion would have gone in taxes. So if I do that 9.5 minus the 1, that's a tax gap of 8.5 billion, and Jeff has given 2 billion. So, I mean, good on him, but it seems like he and Amazon are still the sort of net beneficiaries there.
Let's leave Amazon aside then. Have you ever heard of a guy called Bill Gates and his wife Melinda?
The name rings a bell.
So they,
Something with computers.
when they launched their foundation, they ended up, over this period of time, they ended up donating $35 billion.
35 is a lot more than 2. He's been in the business a bit longer, I'll give him that. But again, unfortunately, I'm going to have to point to our ledger here. And according to a few studies that were done in 2016, Microsoft, of course, the company where he made most of his billions, has been keeping $142 billion offshore of profits. So that's profits that they've made. No tax has been paid on those yet. They're sort of being held indefinitely overseas. Had they been taxed at 35%, that would have meant 49.7 billion would have gone into the US coffers. Again, fantastic that Belinda and Bill have donated 35.
Belinda.
But that still leaves a gap of 14.7 billion. So again, I'm loving the philanthropy, but it still looks to me, based on these scrappy calculations, that the money that's being given back isn't quite the money that was taken out of the system in the first place.
Okay, so these are huge corporations though, and the whole point is that the state is losing this money in theory. So how much money is the state losing?
Okay, well, I mean, I guess there's a few different scales we can look at this on. So across the whole world, 500 billion, according to my research, is lost on tax avoidance each year. So this is just avoidance, again, one of the 2 things we're talking about. And then if we can look at this by country, let's see. So let's say each unit of money here is 1 billion. So I've got 100 here, another 89. That 189 billion is how much tax avoidance there is in the US alone. I can then look at China, where the figure is a slightly more modest 67 billion in China. Next on the list would be Japan,
47.
which is just 47. And bringing up the rear in terms of the big 4 is India, which is on just 41 billion. So the story there being that the US is really the capital of corporate tax avoidance, as it were, with 189 billion going there.
Okay, so 189 billion sounds like a lot of money, but what would that actually pay for? I mean, the state is huge.
If I look at the US budget, let's have a look at what this money could provide. So education, I think we all care about that. So I'm going to use some of my handy little props here, and $112 billion in the latest budget. So let's get some more greens out. Let's say that green is education. 112 went on that. Other stuff that I think we can all agree is really important. So the supplementary nutrition program in the US. So what used to be called food stamps. There's about 40 billion goes on that. And then another thing that I think we can all agree is pretty crucial is children's nutrition, represented by the milk bottle there. So education, food stamps, children's nutrition, all of that. So yes, 189 billion, it's not the size of the US state, but that could be doing a hell of a lot of good, and instead it's just out of the system. One other issue we've not addressed yet is you know your mates Jeff and Bill and Melinda.
My friends.
They're giving a lot of money to good causes here, but exactly which causes are they giving it to money? When people donate, is that money going to the same places that it would if the government distributed, or is it going elsewhere?
Okay, so I had a look at philanthropic donations, and we've got 91% of money that is donated to education causes. That comes from wealthy
is that globally,
individuals.
or are we talking about?
This is in the US.
Okay.
And then 63% of funding that goes to the arts, that comes from wealthy individuals.
Those are pretty impressive figures. But I guess there's two particular holes I'd like to pick in that, being the annoying soul that I am. So one thing I looked at on education is, when we talk about philanthropic donations to education here, are we talking, the poorest schools in struggling neighbourhoods? Are we talking Ivy League schools? And some stats I saw show that the top 20 Ivy League colleges, so the most elite higher education institutions in the US, they account for only 1% of college places in the US, but 28% of these philanthropic donations. And the other one, I think this is really striking, is if I replicate your pie chart style, 91% of funding of donations to education from the richest people, great. 63% of donations to the arts from the richest, awesome. But if we look at the basic needs giving, so money for people who are really at the bottom end of the spectrum, only 38% of that comes from high net worth individuals, 62% from the normal man and woman on the street. To my eyes, that shows that the wealthy, when they do give, they give it to things that they benefit from and not necessarily to others.
Well, I guess neither you nor I think that philanthropic donations can completely wipe out and replace the government. They just serve different purposes.
True, but I would say that yes, philanthropic giving is good, but if that money is being given to the pet causes of the wealthy, and that money is money that would otherwise have gone into government coffers through taxes and been distributed more evenly, then for me, that's something we've got to look at.
Yeah, okay, but I'll just add that $35 billion that Bill Gates gave out, if he'd been taxed on that, that would have never been donated.
True. So, the numbers do appear to support Bregman's argument that corporations are only giving away a small portion of what they own.
On the other hand, others might argue that these two forms of funding are not mutually exclusive, and these billions from philanthropists are still going to a good cause.
We're going to leave links to all the sources that we use below the video. If you've got any thoughts on anything we discussed today, or any suggestions for what we do next time, leave a comment.
And if you like, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel.